Seeking the powers discovered by the Entrati family, Parvos Granum commissioned a warframe with the ability to manipulate time. It's that desire which gives us Protea. She wields devices as her abilities and weaponry, able to heal, harm, and control to devastating effect. So how does this all work? I'm the engineer, let's solve a practical problem. Now that Protea Prime has been released, there are a few ways to get your hands on Protea. For the normal version, you either buy her from the market for platinum, or farm her from Granum Voids after completing the Deadlock Protocol quest. From the market, she comes with an Orokin reactor built in and a Warframe slot, all ready to go. In Granum Voids, you'll need to obtain Granum Crowns first from treasurers, use those crowns to open up the right tier of Granum Void at a Golden Hand terminal, and then defeat enough spectres to reach maximum rewards for the Granum Void. With max rewards, you have a 1 in 9 chance of getting a part, with the part split across the 3 tiers of Granum Void. Half of all players will be able to get all 3 pieces in 24 or fewer runs, but 1 in 20 players will need over 55 runs, and 1 in 100 players will need over 73 runs. Protea can be an unforgiving farm. Protea is not currently available via the circuit. Protea Prime, you can again either buy her directly at the moment with Prime Access, buy her component blueprints from other players through trading, or farm out the individual pieces yourself. Protea Prime is a slightly unforgiving Prime to farm. She has 2 components which are rare tier, rather than one like Gauss Prime, and one of her rares is currently on the Axii Relic, which is the most tedious to obtain of all standard relics. This isn't insurmountable, but it does add to the farm time. As with any new Prime Warframe, the best places to farm the relics depends on the tier as follows. For Lith, speedrun the Hepic Capture mission in the Void, or run A and B rotations for Olympus Disruption on Mars. For Miso, speedrun the Ukko Capture mission in the Void, or run C rotations for Olympus on Mars. For Neo, again, speedrun the Ukko Capture mission in the Void, or run B and C rotations for Disruption on Uranus. Finally for Axii, Disruption is simply the best from either Apollo Lua, or for slightly lower rates, you can run Kappa on Sedna or Armatus on Deimos. However you go about obtaining Protea, let's see what she does. Protea's passive is one of the most powerful in the game. Every 4th ability she casts has a 100% strength bonus additive to mods. This can be used to not only enhance her abilities in general, but also to hit key breakpoints for her abilities. The UI will show you when you're due for your next strength boost, coloured based on your energy colour. Protea's 4 active abilities all deploy devices of some kind. Grenade Fan will send out an arc of grenades to either hurt your enemies or protect you and your team. The grenades fan out in a 90-degree arc and fall as they travel. By default, the Tapcast sends out shrapnel grenades. This releases 3 damaging grenades which, on landing, generate a slashing field to damage all enemies in range. This field bypasses all terrain, damaging every valid target with slash once per second, has a low chance to proc slash, and will cause non-overguarded units to stagger away from the grenade. This provides a combination damage and crowd control effect. The radius of the grenades is not very big, only 5 meters at base, requiring a substantial range boost for it to affect more than a choke point or narrow corridor. The grenades last for a fixed amount of time based on your duration stat, and you can cast it repeatedly to create overlapping zones without limit. If you hold cast instead, Protea sends out 4 grenades as defensive satellites. These will deploy as pickups of Protea and her allies. Each person can only be affected by 1 satellite at a time, providing at base 500 shields instantly on pickup and generating additional shields over time for the ability duration, extending into overshields. Any satellites not in range of a player in need will instead hover above its landing site and wait for someone to come in range or for it to time out. The satellites have a secondary function should incoming damage be too much. On reaching 0 shields, a target satellite will instantly be destroyed and cause the shield gate they have to be doubled in length. I don't know why the ability card suggests a minimum shield gate increase, it just flat doubles whatever shield gate you're supposed to have. This feature suffers from a very important issue. While the satellites are able to provide you with up to 5 seconds of shield gate, anything that restores partial shields to a warframe will cancel its existing shield gate and provide it with a new one. If that new shield gate is shorter than the remaining time would have been on your old shield gate, you end up taking damage sooner because you restore some shields. This isn't unique to Protea. I can replicate the same effect on Sarin. Here, her 2.5 second shield gate, caused by needlessly high shield modding just for this demonstration, is bypassed by gaining a token amount of shields from the Augur set on casting Molt. She ends up taking damage less than 1.5 seconds after her shields were initially broken due to the casting of Molt. Molt gave her 95 shields and a new shield gate of just 0.76 seconds when there was still 2.17 seconds left on the old gate. Protea suffers more, however, as she's constantly able to push for a high shield gate, even with no mods on at all, as Shield Satellite provides an instant 500 shields on pickup. The satellite then doubles the gate length, in total giving her a 3.2 second shield gate. That is far above what would be generated from casting any ability under the effect of the Augur set or Brief Respite aura. You can't stop random allies bringing Brief Respite aura, however, which means you cannot prevent this issue in the current version of the game. All you can do is avoid using that aura and set yourself in Protea builds, including no Augur mods on your weapons. Without Augur shenanigans, it is possible to use shield satellites to stay alive indefinitely, thanks to shield gating and casting multiple grenades in a single throw. Protea's second ability moves on from a hybrid approach to pure offense. Blaze Artillery deploys a turret with auto-targeting, perfect accuracy, 130-degree field of view, and scaling heat damage. With every enemy it hits, Blaze Artillery increases the damage of its subsequent shots by plus 100%. As this is per hit, if the turret hits multiple enemies at once, then it can increase its damage multiple times over. Each projectile from the turret has total body punch through, enabling it to hit every enemy in line until it hits terrain. Not only that, the projectiles are slightly wide, allowing nearby enemies to be hit too, not just those in a perfect line. Blaze Artillery does need line of sight, has a very short time span, and has a fixed angle of effect. Even with these drawbacks, it is still an incredibly powerful ability. With just the base duration alone, it is able to fire 9 times. On a single target with a single hit scaling, that's a total of 22,500 heat damage and 9 heat procs, with a total heat proc damage over time reaching 74,250. In total, that's nearly 100,000 damage from a single cast of Blaze Artillery with no modding, enough to kill this level 85 Scram boss. With a bit of modding, I cannot spawn one high enough level to survive. Granted, the Corpus aren't exactly known for their resilience, but an auto-targeting pseudo AoE ability dishing out over 800,000 damage to a target should not be overlooked. Protea is limited to 3 turrets active at once. With their 130-degree firing arcs, this is enough to cover the full 360 degrees around her. That said, you'll often be better off placing them in key sight lines rather than going for circular coverage on a single spot. As if to perfect the ability, each shot applying a guaranteed heat effect also means a guaranteed panic effect on most enemies. Them panicking means they aren't running out of the line of fire, and thus continue to be barraged by bolts of blazing brilliance, being burned beyond recovery. With offense, defense, and a couple forms of soft crowd control sorted, Protea's third ability is Dispensary, a support tool. This provides a rotating cycle of super health orbs, with 100 health instead of the usual 50, universal ammo pickups, refilling 10% of every weapon's max ammo, rounded up, including heavy weapons, and standard energy orbs. Dispensary always starts by putting out the super health orb and will only repeat an item once the original pickups have been taken. Dispensary uniquely uses strength not to make the orbs and ammo better, but to instead give the ability a chance to spawn 2 pickups at once. This can be a huge benefit to the whole team for support, especially when paired with the mod Equilibrium. Equilibrium allows you to pick up health orbs for energy or energy orbs for health, granting both restores at once, with the opposite type getting modified by Equilibrium. At max rank, it provides a 110% modifier, causing the 100 health super orbs to provide 110 energy each, over 4 times better than normal energy orbs. Combined with the chance of dropping 2 super health orbs at once, this is an incredible outpouring of energy. Dispensary is also Protea's subsume ability, granting other warframes the same benefits. Unfortunately, other warframes suffer a duration penalty. Protea's base dispensary duration is a cool 25 seconds, subsumed this comes down to just 12.5 seconds. Lastly, dispensary comes with an augment. Originally it was the first way to get a dead sentinel back to life. Now it's an all-companion healing augment which, in my opinion, isn't all that useful nor needed. You can skip it really. If Protea can now bring offense, defense, control, and full spectrum replenishment, what can her fourth ability bring to round this all out? Problems. It brings problems. Temporal Anchor on cast pinpoints Protea's position and statistics, leaving a trail of semi-transparent after images as she moves off from that spot. You also get 3 seconds of invulnerability at the start. While the ability is active, nothing else really happens. It'll track your movements and damage dealt, but it confers no actual benefit at this time. When the ability ends, something finally occurs. This can either be by you recasting Temporal Anchor, the ability running out of time, ironic as that might sound, or you take lethal damage. In all 3 cases, you then begin a rapid rewinding of your movement since casting Temporal Anchor. Any energy, health, shields and ammo gained or lost during this time is undone during your rewind. The time it takes to complete the rewind is actually distance based. The more you move during the ability, the longer it takes the rewind to complete, regardless of how long the ability itself lasted. If you didn't move at all, the rewind is almost instant. Activating the rewind also causes a secondary effect. If the rewind was triggered by recasting or timing out, you leave an implosion behind at the moment of beginning your rewind. This damages and ragdolls nearby enemies, with the damage based on how much damage you dealt during Temporal Anchor. The amount of damage is also reduced by a multiplier on your ability, tied to strength, and is turned into blast damage. Until blast is reworked, that's a pretty poor damage type. If you instead trigger the rewind due to taking lethal damage, no implosion is triggered and no damage dealt. Instead, you rewind back into a staggered state, with only a sliver of health remaining. While this technically saves you from death, it may also put you into a doomed position and should not be relied upon. My problem with Temporal Anchor is it's not really trying to do anything helpful. It offers to recover your expended combat resources, but this both requires you to have full up on casting, unlike with Dispensary, and it requires you to rewind to an early position to get those benefits. In a static location, you can very easily just use Dispensary, while in a moving mission, you'll have precious little reason to rewind. Not only that, while rewinding you will still pick up scattered orbs if you backtrack near them, only to immediately lose the benefit. If you're rewinding down a path you want to go down again afterwards, this just turns the area barren of useful pickups. The implosion damage it offers is only in a modest area, giving a single basic damage explosion with limited results. The death save is strictly inferior to shield satellites for causing you to auto rewind into a potentially dangerous spot and in a vulnerable staggered state. To top it off, the ability has a short duration, at base only 8 seconds. You could attempt to use it to back out of the spy vault quickly, but Protea offers no other means to quickly do said spy vault to make those few seconds sufficient for most players. If you decide at any point you don't wish to rewind, you have 2 options. Either you hold cast the ability to cancel it, removing any effects at all and rendering the whole time it was active basically pointless, or you switch to Operator as the rewinding starts. So long as you switch after the rewind begins, you can continue to play as Operator until the rewind finishes, and then call your Warframe back to resume normal gameplay. For a short ability, with a not insignificant rewind time for travelling larger distances, that's going to be a lot of Operator hopping. DE have since introduced an augment to attempt to rectify this. Temporal Erosion grants both Shrapnel Grenades and Blaze Artillery a strength scaling armor strip while Temporal Anchor is active. As much as that is definitely usable to remove enemy armor, you still have to juggle the ability, not let it fully time out if you want to avoid rewinding, and you'd be nearly locked in to all 4 of Protea's abilities. You do not want to remove the shield satellites, the restoration of Dispensary, nor the required Temporal Anchor, leaving only Blaze Artillery as a helmet slot, something I seriously would not recommend given its power. All that, and it's not really Temporal Anchor doing anything, it's just forced synergy on 2 other already good abilities. Protea can achieve the armor strip in other ways. For a cheap armor and defense strip, she can use Tharos Strike, more effective for on-the-go missions where she'll already be getting up close to the enemies. For a more expensive but large area of effect, she can use Pillage. Unlike issues with the Augur set, Pillage generates more than enough shields to not ruin her shield gate, on top of removing both enemy shield and armor. Alternatively again, Protea can use Tempest Barrage for a cheap, targeted crowd control and armor strip combo. Enhance it with both Viral Tempest and a couple Emerald Archon shards for maximum effect. All 3 of these options just work without you having to handle a rewind feature, and they don't require you to specifically target enemies with your other abilities neither, putting normal gunplay on the table. Temporal Anchor does have one unique practical use however. If you are playing a Grineer Railjack mission, boarding the enemy objective, and need to destroy a Radiator on the outside, she finally can step up to the plate with a janky combo. Activate Temporal Anchor, switch to Operator, crouch as Operator to not get attacked, open the tactical menu, default L on PC, View someone on your railjack, such as an NPC crew member. Use the railjack navigational menu to teleport to the side gunner seats. Take control of a side gunner. Launch your preferred attack at the radiator, I normally use Shatterburst. Then wait for Temporal Anchor to finish. This will warp your operator back to Protea and allow you to continue your boarding objective. If you're quick enough on returning after using a well-placed Shatterburst, you may even destroy 2 radiators solo this way. Such a setup requires Tactical Intrinsics 3, someone on the railjack, Protea, operator, Temporal Anchor, and a situation in which no one else is actually destroying the radiator for you. It's a little bit niche, but it is something. Generally speaking, it is safe to remove Temporal Anchor. It's just not that valuable, and years after release, still exists mostly to make Protea the time-bending warframe necessary for the lore. With these abilities in mind, let's talk builds. Protea is best when holding down a location, such as during defense, survival, or excavation. For that, we can use a pillage approach like this. With Precision Intensify involved, we start the mission with 289% strength, enough to reach 90% armor strip with corrosive projection. With Protea's passive, or 163 kills obtained, the strength climbs enough to make Pillage a full armor strip. It doesn't reach full shield strip with this setup outside of the passive boosted casts, but it'll still clear most of them in a single go. Use shield satellites primarily as defense, alongside good coverage of blaze artillery and repeat casts of Pillage for offense. Dispensary will provide a lot of energy support and occasional healing for the damage that slips through. Arcane Steadfast gives a little protection against the high energy cost of spamming abilities, and also doubles as a chance to protect against allies using Brief Respite. If your shield gate is triggered and you cast Grenade Fan while Arcane Steadfast is active, you won't spend any energy and therefore won't ruin your shield gate. It's super niche, I admit, but it's still a sustained benefit that otherwise allows you to cast without worrying about your energy economy. Archon Vitality here can be ranked up if you have a suitable copy or wish to heavily form a Protea. However, unranked is still sufficient for the passive effect. Whenever an ability applies a heat proc, Archon Vitality applies another heat proc. Considering we get forced procs from Blaze Artillery, this simply doubles your status damage output. If you need to control enemies a bit more, throw down shrapnel grenades at the choke points you want to stall them at. Prime Sure-Footed isn't crucial, but you definitely want to be ready to deal with the threats it otherwise blocks. Being knocked down twice in a row can certainly happen and spell death as a result at higher levels. The mid-ranked Narrow-Minded is specific to this type of build, allowing us to use Stretch 2 for neutral range and keeping the good duration buff. This gives more duration than using a combination of Constitution and Augur Message would, while also avoiding the Augur set issue with large shield gates. The neutral range can be a weakness on larger maps, giving imperfect coverage in places like the circuit. In most cases, however, the turrets will be plenty sufficient. If you don't want to subsume on Pillage, or any ability, you can look to move Protea to a range-based setup using Temporal Erosion. The high range allows for shrapnel grenades to cover a large area when well placed, with multiple overlapping grenades able to rapidly and permanently remove enemy armor before they can even see you. The added crowd control effect makes this more defensive, but the lower damage the grenades do compared to turrets means they'll have a slower kill rate. This is especially true against stronger units, which turrets would focus fire quickly. We lose duration and strength to make this setup have this much range, and you must keep Temporal Anchor up to make full use of the armor strip effect, recasting it every 12 seconds. While you can use Molt Efficiency for additional duration, I find Molt Augmented better for long-term damage and armor removal. In both cases, you'll benefit greatly from casting speed Archon shards, and I recommend using a shard for starting energy too, due to the low efficiency on the setups. The other 2 shard slots can be spent on additional duration with Crimson shards, or you can keep those 2 shard slots open for this third build. Protea's main approach doesn't lend itself too well to roaming missions, rather than static ones due to the high energy cost and fixed location effects. For roaming, we'd want a more efficient approach. Now, as much as you can try and make Pillage or Temporal Anchor work with that still, an alternative is to use Tempest Barrage. Tempest Barrage is a cheap, modest AoE corrosive raining ability that can be repeatedly cast wherever and however you want. Stack it with the Augment of Viral Tempest to apply corrosive and viral procs simultaneously. With 2 Emerald Shards added in, this provides crowd control, damage, total armor strip, and high bonus to damage on health against enemies in the affected area. At that point, you can either clean them up with your other abilities or shoot them down, both work. Once again, Protea can still rely on shield satellites for survival, blaze artillery for heavy targets or clusters, and dispensary for restocking as she moves through the mission. Tempest Barrage is weaker against Acolytes due to their status resistance feature, but enough barrages and artillery will still shut them up. Finally, for less well-invested players, certainly earlier in quest progression, you can opt for a more budget build like this. We've got no arcanes to get, no prime mods or 10 pip endo drains. This has a simple focus on duration as their key ability stat, a solid energy economy, and the temporal erosion augment, as you may as well still get some armor strip value in. If you don't have the augment or aren't facing armored enemies, you can use the budget solution to prime sure-footed by combining normal sure-footed with fortitude, granting total knockdown immunity and a token shield buff. This setup isn't particularly amazing for roaming missions, as Protea broadly has nothing geared towards doing them. She's not a speed or nuke frame. She's better used when turtling up and laying down fire on every sightline presented to her. Make no mistake, she is a very powerful warframe, from budget build all the way up to fully kitted. Whether defending, surviving, excavating, or running all three via the Grendel missions, with a Protea on the team, you'll have all the time in the world. I hope you found this guide helpful on getting to grips with Protea. As ever, this isn't designed as an exhaustive guide, but will give you plenty to sink your teeth into. A big thank you to the channel supporters here, on Patreon, and on Twitch. That's all from me for now, so as always, throw nades, shoot blaze, and fight well, Tenno.